demon doctors, more money on the horizon, and big tech getting grilled in Congress? Join us today as we discuss all these topics and more. Hey guys, and welcome to the Political Perch podcast, a bi-weekly podcast that talks about current events, politics, presidents, history, and anything that is plaguing the United States of America. Join us.
Hey guys, I'm Ashton,
And I'm Andy.
and welcome to our, I want to say, bi-weekly podcast where we go over the news in this world, political news in this world. Andy, it's been quite a week.
Yeah, quite a week, and honestly, it feels like every week is either a month or a day. It's like time is irrelevant now.
Yeah, and it's starting to feel crazy because I feel like when we have a podcast and we talk about three things, and me and you, we like talk, we like to put out our opinions and debate each other, and it kind of feels hard to squeeze three things into one bi-weekly podcast because so much happens, and it's like so much important stuff, and I feel like it's happening like twice a day at that.
Yeah, just turn on the news and another war is about to start, or another crazy thing a president or congressman has said. It's just insane all the time. It feels like.
Oh yeah, and it actually came out today. Louis Gohmert got a COVID, and he was refusing to wear a mask. And he even to tell his staff he had COVID, he had them meet up in a room with him, and he didn't have a mask. So
Science is cool.
yeah, it's just like stuff like that we can't fit in there and like have a full on conversation. But let's go to our first topic, kind of get this train rolling. Andy, our first topic today is you kind of talked about it on the tagline, uh demon doctors. Andy, do you want to explain this or do you want me?
Um, I can summarize it, and then you can give some kind of context to it. Um, Basically, circling around Twitter, Facebook, the usual social media platforms, that a doctor was went up on, I think it was a Republican, a Congress or something, on the steps of somewhere.
I don't know exactly where she it was a video and it was filmed by her, and I think it was far right groups retweeting it and stuff like that, and apparently you know how these things go. Apparently they get in front of the
Yeah.
president of the United States and he decides to retweet a let's say questionable doctor, Andy.
Yeah, this questionable doctor, Dr. Immanuel, basically has said that many things, for like such as demons, gynecology, women's gynecology issues, are results of having sexual intercourse with witches and demons in dreams. She's preached on stuff like this where she blames, infertility and miscarriages and STIs on stuff that are evil deposits from the spirit husband. It's just some things you hear out of like a J.R.R. Tolkien book, or
don't
you turn on
don't
a
insult
science
Tolkien.
you, you turn on a science fiction movie, and this is what you're hearing, right? But no, this is what our president today, not today, but today is in like a general sense, is praising that, just because she is saying that she's found the cure for COVID and no one has died under her watch, which is just, to me, is crazy that, and of
Well,
course they
um
retweeted like crazy.
let me just make a quick comment there. He isn't necessarily praising her, but he is giving her a platform, and I think that's the issue people are gonna have with this. I mean, she claimed that people have DNA from space aliens. Uh, at a certain point, um, It's one thing to expect the president to be presidential and, be professional and stuff like that. It's another thing just to expect him to at least look up a name before you retweet something. He is president of the United States, and you need to be careful with who you raise up on a pedestal. A lot of people look up to you, a lot of kids, just by the fact that you hold that office, and you're putting up a lady who's, I think, no debate that she's said some crazy things on a pedestal is an issue. I mean, you can debate hydrochloroquine, that's debatable. I think that's not the issue people are having. It's like you shouldn't be raising this person that high.
I totally agree. I think, retweeting her words and trying to like use these things she says as a political agenda kind of hurts three main groups of people. Of course, women, because of the words she's been saying about how basically anything that happens to them, it's their fault because they're having some kind of sexual dreams with demons. Some nonsense that she's saying. Another group that's affected, of course, are people that are dealing with COVID or people just in general who are trying to stay healthy because fake diagnosis of hydrochloroquine being effective, which the CDC has reported numerous times being ineffective, can hurt people. And it also hurts a group of the Christians because they try hard to not, because there's a lot of crazy right wing, left wing, radical Christians out there, but the majority of them are good people, and then they have to be kind of grouped in this class of people like this Dr. Immanuel here that are preaching things like this in their church, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's just the whole circumstance is kind of sad because, we're going to try not to get into his response to COVID-19. We've covered that somewhat and we'll continue covering it. But overall, he- it's like he wore a mask a few times and doesn't want to keep on doing that. And now he's spending time, touting this drug that isn't proven to do anything. It's weird, and I don't see the political gain from it. I really don't. Like, I mean, some people have floated that people close to Trump have stock in the drug. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not. But, I don't see a lot of reason to tout a drug that's not proven. It's just weird. Unless if you're like trying to go for a miracle cure thing, maybe try to have false hope or give people false hope. It's just, it's a weird thing. It's sad to see from President of the United States, and I know we've had such a lowered bar in the last 3 years that like it's hard to be shocked by anything. This is just more like silly in the long term. It's not going to affect anything, but theoretically, there are people who could see this and die from it. Like people have died from taking this drug. Not to mention people who actually need it. I forget what group it is, but uh, Andy, do you know what medical condition this is taken for? I think malaria or something like that. People who actually have um, health conditions where they have to take this drug and it's proven to help can't get it because it's in short supply, mostly due to the president of the United States telling people they should take this for COVID, something totally not related. So,
Yeah, I just to confirm, it is used to help prevent malaria in some cases, not all cases, but it's a helpful drug for people suffering with malaria infections. But I think just everything you've been saying and I've been saying about just this whole hydrochloroquine situation is that Donald Trump is just so desperately trying to get past this coronavirus. I wouldn't say scandal, but insanely negative
crisis.
situation for him, right? Like he was touting this drug all the way back in late March. So it's not like it's the first time he's been like saying, "Oh, this drug is going to work. I swear it's a cure." He not his exact words, but basically that's what he's trying to get at, and he's trying so desperately to just push. away this coronavirus like it never happened because, his number one strength is the economy. And he's trying to, win a re-election. And if there's no economy or the economy is so desperately damaged because of this, it really significantly lowers his chances to win.
Yeah, and I think the ironic thing is to this is the more he tries to ignore it, the worse and longer it's gonna stay. Because at least in my opinion, had the country got on the same, just like Europe, had the country gotten on the same step in February and March and started doing social distancing, started doing masking, the whole country, not just 60% of it, but like 80, 90, if a majority of the country started doing all those things and we shut down for 2, 3 months and everyone took it seriously, I honestly think we would be in the same place as Europe, starting to reopen. You would have the cases down, cases limited, and coronavirus wouldn't be rampant, because if you can't shut down the coronavirus, states can't open, and even worse, some states have to close down, and you're prolonging the hurt. And there's only so much your relief bill can last, because eventually a lot of those companies that are being afloat, or like put afloat by that just spending spree, they're going to come collapsing down. And we've already lost so many companies already. And it's just, to me, I just think it's ironic. Everything he's doing is not how you handle a crisis, and you prolonging the COVID situation, you're prolonging how badly damaged the economy is.
Yeah, um, it's a tough situation. The last time we had a pandemic like this, 1918 with the Spanish flu, different time was, even if you didn't agree with, the current president at that time was Woodrow Wilson. And even if you don't agree, with any of his politics or his policies or anything he's done, he at least could handle a virus situation, a pandemic situation. And we just are in a position where our president is too busy worrying about his approval ratings against a doctor than he is about leading the country through this.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's sad. Um, a lot of it is kind of making it just worse for himself in the eyes of a lot of moderates and even some conservatives and Republicans. You're starting to see numbers drop in a lot of red states. It's right now hovering between a 9 to 12 point lead for Biden nationwide. Swing states are mostly reflecting that, some less, some more. So it's the political situation isn't getting better no matter how much he tries to ignore COVID, and I feel like it's a little bit too late now. Eh, You know he's going to try something like, for example, in October, try to say that he now has a not a cure, but like maybe a vaccine. And he's going to try it. And the sad part is half of the country is not going to believe him and think he's just doing it for the election.
Yeah, that's what happens. It's a situation of kind of the boy who cried wolf. You say all these things of miracle drug, miracle cure. Regardless, and you use them for political gain, and that could come back and bite them. But Ashton, let's move on because we kind of already talked about our next segment a little bit in our first segment with you said, the relief and stuff. Right now they're debating in Congress, of course, and the Senate about the second stimulus package and the wave there. All right. So it's just Ashton, what are your thoughts on that right now?
So, okay. So for people who don't know, it's been kind of talked about for the last 2 or 3 weeks in Congress. The debate started to really heat up, mostly on the Republican side. It's I feel like a lot of Republicans aren't feeling the same political pressure they felt the first time around, at least not yet, because, or not an urgency, because the Democrats are pretty on board with their proposal, and yeah, mostly. and the Republicans are the ones right now who at least reports are coming out that they have a lot of infighting. They can't agree on a lot of stuff. They had a proposal for like 2 hours and then it fell apart. And if you can call that a proposal, more like one senator said, "Oh, we have something," and then someone else like, "No, I'm not going to vote for that." So it's a real big mess in the Republican caucus. To be fair, the Democrats aren't making it necessarily easy to work with the Republican Senate, regardless if you think that's granted or not. But it's a big mess. I think I have a few notes. Let's go over those notes, Andy. So so right now, uh, the Democrats are seeking at least 600 federal unemployment enhancement a month. At least 600. I think the Republicans for the last few weeks have been trying to get 400 a month, and this is down from I think it's 2 grand a month, if I'm not mistaken, or it's like 2 grand every 2 weeks. It's something like that around there. Um, and the Democrats are also asking for a trillion for state and local funding to fight the coronavirus. And McConnell has obviously been fighting against both of these kind of sticking points, and they haven't even got to the more granular stuff. Apparently, uh, that's what a few sources are telling the Wall Street Journal. So and CNBC. So Andy, do you have any like comments or what do you think? Do you really think it's a good idea for Congress to be dropping the unemployment benefits all the way down to $400 a month?
Yeah, when I heard you say that the Republicans wanted to settle on a $400 unemployment a month, I'm just thinking in my head, who could survive on $400 a month? I mean, that is ridiculously low. It has nowhere near the cost of living is in this country, especially now with the coronavirus situation. And you're telling me that $400 a month is gonna cover everything? If you do the math there, that's $100 a week. I mean, that's barely, barely scraping by at that. I mean, that is below minimum wage. So I understand, I guess, where they're coming from with, this is just added money, but people are hurting now. Over 150,000 people have died, and over 2 million have had the disease. Maybe 3 million now. I think it's up to almost 3 million
Well,
now have had the disease.
so let's be clear here. It's an enhancement, so it's on top of what is already um based in the unemployment budget. So you get a basic unemployment, and then they gave an enhancement or kind of like more money a month than you would normally get, which that tells me that unemployment itself is already underfunded. If they thought like people needed more money, a month. So either way, it's still pushing that down from 2 grand extra a month on top of what regular unemployment gives you, all the way down to 400. It's still not, you can't live off of that, especially when a lot of people are losing like middle class jobs around the 340 or 30, 40, $50,000 range. Like you're not going to be able to sustain your bills. And yeah, it's a big mess. And Republicans, you actually have a few Republican senators talking about spending, about government spending right now.
It just shows where the priorities lie. With you have like I said, you have the leader who thinks from the beginning thought this thing was a hoax, and now kind of being forced in submission to believe that it is a real disease, still doesn't want to blame anybody, but he blames China or he blames other people. That leadership trickles down. As Hillary Clinton once said, "Trump up, trickle down." You know, doing something one of her quotes, but you see other people in the Senate and the Congress, basically bending over backwards for Trump, doing what he wants, and it shows.
Yeah, let's be clear here. We're not gonna blame Trump for the actual virus itself, but the American response, he is 100% has some liability there. And it's one of those things where you can't just keep on ignoring it, and like Republicans are stuck in a rock between a rock and a hard place, because if you try to take the disease seriously, then you get made fun of. Like literally, someone from Louis Gohmert's going back to that, Louis Gohmert's office said that a few people or a few staffers wearing masks were actually berated by the congressman, berated for wearing a mask. And this is the same dude who talked about he didn't want to wear a mask because it was his personal freedom not to. And he was berating people for wearing one in his office. So it's just, you're right. Leadership trickles down. Even then, it's political pressure. If you're a elected official and you're a Republican and the base is expecting you to follow anything Trump says, and if you don't, you'll get hammered or you'll get tweeted at, and your base won't ever vote for you again, or that's the fear. So it's just, it's rough. All right, Andy. Since we're done with that, would you like to bring up the third topic?
Yeah, so one more thing before we move on. I just wanted to kind of just, nail the point in the head, if you will, which just if you have leaders in Congress, leaders in Senate, leaders in any form or fashion that's elected by the people to serve the people for the best interest of the people that are yelling at people about wearing masks, not taking it seriously about wearing masks and just endangering themselves, it's just to me inhumane and just something we should think about come November when some of those congressmen or senators are up for reelection or election. So let's move on to our third segment. And this is one I know me and you, Ashton, have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, circulating even more in the news lately, and that is big tech companies, Apple, Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that, are getting grilled on Capitol Hill right now by both Democrats and Republicans alike. You have people, especially the Republican side, that are yelling about unfairly censorship of their content on the platform. They want to be able to share things, and Twitter or Facebook might deem it as unreliable or fake news, or might not even take it down, like in the case with Donald Trump Jr. Ashton, how do you think, or what are your thoughts on it? How do you think it's going? What is your, I wouldn't say stance, but what are your opinions?
Well, both sides are. It's kind of funny because both sides were kind of hammering the tech CEOs from different angles, of course. But you got the conservatives kind of going the whole free speech angle, attacking the social media platforms, and of course you had the Democrats attacking them for their um I would say monopoly practices or monopoly like practices, and also them not being very active against foreign influence in political activities. So everyone has something to be angry about, and a lot of Congress people made it very, very clear they were angry. Um, so when it comes to the free speech part, let's tackle that first. I'm more libertarian when it comes to this point of view. I feel like technically the free speech clause in Constitution doesn't apply to anything outside the government. It does not give you protection on Twitter or Facebook. Technically, those companies can do whatever they want with their algorithm. They can do whatever they want with the speech on their platforms. Now, I would be all in favor with laws making it where if they are doing that, they have to make it clear to their customers they are. You have to be completely transparent. I'm fine with laws that kind of govern it, but I'm not okay with actually controlling those companies individually or like more closely.
For me, I kind of have a two-part response. to everything that's going with the free speech issue right now. The first is kind of looking at just the lens of government players themselves, not my personal opinion. I do kind of find how it is very hypocritical of some Republicans that fight for companies to be able to have, free enterprise and free market and to be able to control what they want. But the minute a private company like Twitter takes down or censors a conservative viewpoint or the president's tweet, they go all up in arms. They're yelling, screaming, saying that they can't do that, violation of the First Amendment or other things like that. I think it's just kind of hypocritical for them. You can't have it both ways in wanting free market, free enterprise. In my personal opinion, my personal response with the way social media is just set up right now with free speech is I believe in free speech. I mean, it is one of the most foundational pieces of our Constitution. It was so foundational that it wasn't just freedom of speech, it prohibited abridging any kind of speech. And that's not just like you can't even, I just think it's very, very foundational to the way this country was founded. And I think there should be some expansion of the First Amendment in social media. I don't think that it should be a Wild West free for all kind of place because that's when things like threats, things that could cause actual hurt, like crime and sometimes even murder, can occur that way. I think an expansion of some freedom of speech is necessary, but also with, limits would be ideal.
But is that up to the government to choose? Or is that up to the
That's
company?
that's always a tricky situation because I kind of it's your definition of social media. Honestly, it is. If you define social media or the social media companies, so like Twitter, Facebook, and you only look at them through the lens of companies, then no, the government cannot tell them what to do. If you look at it as Facebook and Twitter are kind of the publishing house of a communication type of thing. So like the printing press was a type of led to books, and books are communication. We don't limit any speech in books. The publisher can, but we don't limit any kind of speech in books. So do you it all depends on the lens you look at social media as. If it's purely like I said, a company, no, the government can't tell them what to do. But if you want to say it's a forum now where the people are allowed to speak freely, like kind of like the coffee shops back in France before the French Revolution, then maybe there needs to be more freedom of speech.
Yeah, I'm just one of those people that feel like it doesn't matter what it is necessarily, medium or not. It is social media. They are companies, and that platform, until people decide to vote and make it a law where those platforms are technically something else, they are private companies and they should be able to operate how they want. Like I said, I'm all for voting for transparency laws, making those companies kind of tell their customers what they are doing and why they are doing it, when they are doing it. I'm all for stuff like that, but when it comes to actually controlling what they do, I am just not for that because I feel like that's a box of that's a bee's nest or hornet's nest that you do not want to stir up.
Definitely don't want to bring evil hornets back again. And
Oh
that was
yeah, yeah,
somewhat
murder
relevant months
hornets.
and months ago.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so another thing that kind of came up in these proceedings are a lot of the antitrust stuff, like Facebook's acquisition of Instagram. Apparently, the CEO of Instagram kind of insinuated that he was getting basically forced by Facebook to be bought out or threatened with a competitor in the same market. Um, you also have Amazon using, let me bring it up. Uh, you have Amazon saying that his own company's policy of not selling to third parties data or not allowing third parties to sell their data to support private businesses, that policy itself, he said, and I quote, "I can't guarantee you that policy has never been violated." So, Andy, you see a bunch of these tech giants kind of going or getting attacked for shady business practices. Do you think they're too big? Do you think they should be broken up by now?
That is always a tough thing to do because you look through history, you look in the 19th century in America when we had the huge influx of monopolies with the robber barons, like Rockefeller and JP Morgan and stuff like that, when their businesses were huge. I mean, just all consuming, you couldn't do anything. And if you tried, you would just have to sell your business to them or go bankrupt in the process. It's getting to that point where, fewer and fewer companies are producing the content we see. I mean, social media might only be owned by Facebook soon. Um, when it's a debate of when is enough, where the government has to step in and say you can't do this because you know capitalism is great in a limited form. Because if you allow capitalism to run wild, we saw that back, like I said, in the 19th century, where only a handful of businesses will be able to survive because they get too big and too big and bigger and bigger, and they just
Well,
buy out stuff.
it isn't a true free market at that point. It is a limited market with a few players controlling it. So, like, laissez-faire capitalism isn't really laissez-faire at a certain point whenever monopolies get developed. It
Yeah,
isn't a truly free market because you can't just start a business and compete in the marketplace when someone has a control of the market share.
yeah. I mean, if we allow laissez-faire capitalism to run this country right now, you would have Facebook, you would have Amazon, you would have Disney as the three main, companies ruling. I won't say ruling, but controlling everything. And as much as you may love Amazon or Disney, that's when it becomes a problem because they can control what they want, they can control the prices, and it's not the free market that we strive for. So the question is are we at a point now where there needs to be more antitrust laws, more kind of the breaking of the banks, if you will?
Well, should they be broken up? Should some tech companies be broken up right now?
I don't know if this will be a popular or unpopular opinion, but honestly, personally, I think as of right now, not yet. They're not too big yet. That's close. I think we need to relook at this in the next couple of years and see it again because, yes, Facebook bought Instagram, and I get that, but there's more than just those two social media platforms out there. You still have Twitter, you still have TikTok for however long that will last now. You have other platforms, maybe not as popular, but they're there. And we'll get into the point where maybe we need to consider breaking them up. But that's going to be a discussion that's going to be a very heated debate in any house of the Senate or Congress or anything like that.
Hmm. For me personally, I actually lean towards, at least when it comes to Facebook and Amazon, they should both be broken up. I am very, again, a lot of people will be shocked when they hear that because like I said, I'm very libertarian when it comes to things like this. But at a certain point, you have to go full Teddy Roosevelt and be like, these companies have too much sway in their relative marketplaces. And it's clear when Amazon itself can raise the price of online toilet paper just because people start jacking it up on there, you have a problem. And it's like market prices for a lot of goods are solely tied to what they are on Amazon. That's not a good sign. You don't want that. You want competition on a lot of goods and marketplaces. And when Amazon, the marketplace itself, starts being a, let's say, inflection point for prices, that's when I feel like it's too big. And so personally, I feel like, at least when it comes to Facebook and Amazon, those two individually should be broken up. Other ones we can debate about.
I'll
Disney is
debate
getting
you.
there.
I'll
Disney's
debate you
getting
on.
there.
I'll debate you on Facebook. I can see. Well, that's getting too big. I will disagree with you on Amazon. I understand what you're saying with the influx. You look at that's the margin of price now, right? That is the standard of what everything should be. But to me, when I'm trying to buy a good or service, like let's say I need to buy a pillow or something, my first and only thought is not Amazon. There are other things on the market. Yeah, they might be more expensive, but that's not to me. Amazon is not at the point where I say, you know, Amazon is dictating price per se, where I need to break them up and
But
distribute.
the problem is it is for some goods. It may not be for pillows. You can buy pillows on Amazon, and I'm sure they don't control the price for pillows. But the problem is there are a lot of goods out there they do control the price of. I mean, I, I know a lot of computer parts are now like majority of the prices are driven from what they are sold on Amazon, because it's almost single-handedly controlled the market share for computer sales or like computer component sales. Um, it's just one of those things where there are numerous goods now solely controlled by their price on Amazon. And it's not just that, Amazon as a whole, the company has gone big, they bought a lot of stuff. Mm, it's a tough thing. It's tough to go up to a company that's worked hard to get big to be like you need to break up. I know that sounds like it it sounds harsh, and it is harsh. But it's one of those things where if you want other companies to be able to even succeed, you need to see monopolies when they happen.
I still disagree with you on the Amazon thing. And the last thing I'll say is you bring up the part about computer parts being dictated by Amazon. You might be right, but computer parts, in my opinion, are luxury goods. They're not a requirement, they're not a common good. If Amazon is dictating common good prices, I can agree with you that they're too big, they need to be broken up. But if they dictate luxury items that are not necessary, that are just extra, that we get from our more and more income, middle class Americans, or even, lower classes that are trying to spend on luxury items like this when they don't need to, I'm not gonna have a problem with that because those aren't essentials. They're not so you bring up the point about toilet paper. That is something we got to watch out for. If they dictate toilet paper prices, that's another story. But I don't see any problem with them dictating anything that's luxury or out of reach of normal everyday citizens.
How would you define the railroads in the 19th century? Were they essential or luxury?
Which century?
The 19th.
It's a little bit of both. But
I
I see your point, but still it's a little bit different because they controlled basically every single railroad, all of them.
I guess
Amazon
I
doesn't have a stake on one particular good.
Just to cap this off, I think it's a very debatable subject. It's not a good thing it's not just up to me and you to decide. I feel like it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of more smarter people to get in a room and debate this through and find a solution to make sure the marketplace is as free as possible. I think that's our both of our goals, and I believe that's a lot of people's goals. But in the end, you can't just ask the company, "Oh, do you think you're too big?" because they will never say yes.
It's true.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm sure we're gonna have to do a podcast, emergency podcast in the next 2 weeks before our next show because any day now, Joe Biden's VP can be announced, and we'll give our instant reactions. I'm sure that individual will give a speech or something of that sort. It's going to be a very exciting time for politics because the election is what, only 3 months away?
Crazy to think about that. honestly.
Yeah, I looked up a few days ago, oh, what was 100 days away, and it was April 17th.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
April 17th. It was
feels like a year ago.
100 days out from the election. It was April 17th. So think about that. That amount of time flew by, and it's gonna fly by again. I'm sure between now and then we're gonna have some alien invasions or something, but we'll have something more to talk about next time.
All right, guys, you stay safe out there, wear your mask, and we'll see you in the next podcast.